Hey everybody, how you doing? James W. Falcon here, and this is a very special segment that's called the Next Level Leadership, and I appreciate you joining in. I'm going to give a few more people some chances and opportunities to join us because I got some really good information. So if y'all can sit tight, bear with me for just a second. We're going to give a few people a chance to get on the broadcast. Thanks a lot, y'all. Hang in there. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. James W. Falcon here. Encouragement is key. We're going to give everybody a few more minutes to join us. Stay tuned. Please don't go anywhere. We will get this started in just a bit. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Thanks for joining, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. All righty. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining. Oh, tons of good stuff. Changarang, I appreciate you joining. I noticed you popped up on several of my broadcasts here. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. How's you? How am I? I'm doing well. How about you? How are you? Thanks for joining. Good. Hey, where are you tuning in from, if you don't mind me asking? I'm here in Baltimore, Maryland. Where are you? I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, here broadcasting live from Baltimore. Where are you guys from before we get started as we let a few more people get in and get settled? Anybody, everybody, somebody? Thank you for the hearts. Thank you very much. Thank you. Northern Ireland? Really, Changaray? From Northern Ireland? That is amazing. Wow. What time is it there? What's today's... Hey, there's Finn back. Thank you so much. You were on this morning. I see you up there from Changarang. Today's broadcast is about leadership. We're talking about leadership, and I'm doing a special series on leadership. Oh, it's 7:04. Wow. Is that AM or PM? It's got to be PM, right? PM. Uh-huh. Well, it's 2 p.m. We're sitting in the afternoon here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started, everybody. Again, I'm James W. Falcon, and this is Encouragement is Key's Network. And this particular series, thank you for joining. This particular series that I'm doing is called Next Level Leadership. And I'm calling it that because so many people classify leadership in a particular way. So whatever some of the more common perceptions of leadership are, just adjusting the camera here, whatever some of the more common perceptions of leadership are, we want to go to the next level. So it's like I'm saying, I see you and I raise you X, and that's what this whole process is all about here. So I'm kind of relaxing. Hope you don't mind as I deliver this information here in my basement on this lovely, blustery, cold day. Here in Baltimore, it is about 5 degrees below zero when the wind blows, which is fairly typical for this region, for our city and the surrounding area. Thank you so much for joining. You invited people, Changarang. Thank you. Oh, that really is a huge boost and encouragement to me, so thank you. I want to invite anybody else on the broadcast, if you wouldn't mind doing the same thing. Thank you for the hearts. Go through your Periscope group and invite people. This Changarang is working on my behalf, on our behalf, so thank you for doing that. So invite people to this broadcast. It's going to be really helpful because I just want to make sure that I'm doing my level best to give you bits and pieces of some things that I've learned, some things that I've researched, especially this particular topic, okay? So, launching into the official start of this broadcast, in 2009, 2010, I did an accelerated master's program. It was a really good program through Nyack College, if anybody's familiar with Nyack, based in New York, founded there. But I went to one of their satellite schools in Washington, D.C., so just down the road from me here in Baltimore. And in 2009, 2010, I was able to get my master's in 13 months. The course was accelerated because typically when a master's program, you do the classroom piece or pieces, and then you do the research. Well, we were doing classroom learning as we were writing our paper. They gave us and set us up. Thank you so much for joining. They gave us information and set us up to start writing our paper from the very first night. They started gearing us towards structuring and deciding on a topic, and so it was now, that was the only master's program. Thank you for the hearts. That was the only master's program I had ever done, have to this date ever done. At some point in time, I hope to do a PhD program, but. So, and I had friends and family that had master's degrees, but I never really tapped them for information. So I didn't know how a master's program worked. So when I finished, I was like, yay, until I started talking to some people. And they were like, James, most programs are 2 years, at least. Most programs, you do the classroom and then you do the research. And so I was like, oh, really? So we were doing this whole thing simultaneously. What was really cool is because it was about an hour down the road from me, 40 some odd miles, is where I had to check in a couple times. They used a rotative approach. We actually went to class for 5 weeks, and then we did online training for 5 weeks. So it was a hybrid. So it was a really great opportunity to be able to do it. So anyway, so I got a degree in organizational leadership, and in 2010 graduated with a 3.82 grade point average. Not because I'm special. I'm not telling you that to try to get any kind of pat on the backs or anything. I'm telling you that for this reason. I really took a deep dive into the material. And as a result of that deep dive into the material is why I'm bringing this to your attention. The book that I'm going to be reading from, I'm going to make available to you all by the end of the broadcast, because it's actually the book that I've written. It's called Leading Others, Caring as the Catalyst for Performance Improvement and for Performance Intervention. It is a spinoff of my master's thesis. The design is mine, the book and all the material is really my master's thesis, dialed up in some places, dialed down in some places, and I pledge to have this done by the end of the series, because I'm going to make this book available to you. It's it's just about 100 pages, and I hope to be able to do it chock full of nothing but the science behind leadership. Nothing but the science behind leadership is what this is about. And so it took me 13 months, tens of thousands of dollars to come to this information, to some of these conclusions, and I want to be able to give you that as a benefit. So, as a real quick thing, thank you for being here. Thank you for the hearts in advance. Thank you for the hearts you've sent. Thank you for encouraging other people to join. The very first one of these segments in this series is posted out on my YouTube channel, and you can take a look at that part 1 on James W. Falcon is the name of my new YouTube channel. Check that out for me, and I greatly appreciate it. So let's jump into part 2, okay? All right, so the way the series goes, it's leadership. What is it? That was last week. Today it's leadership. What it should never be or what it should not be is today. Next week, next Saturday, is going to be leadership, and I'm reading from my little sheet of notes. Next week is going to be leadership obligations. Do you know that there are some ethical, some legal, and some moral obligations that leaders have, especially in the workplace, in the marketplace, as it relates to the governance of certain human resource organizations within companies? So it's important for you to check that out. If you don't catch any broadcast and you only have time, energy, and the wherewithal to join me for one program, one of these segments, make sure you do it 2 Saturdays from now on the 27th of February, because that's the series, the segment I'm going to be doing on leadership, and it's called Investments. I'm going to actually show you what you can do based on the research, based on the science, what things you should actually do to see enhancements in the quality relationships you have with the people that report to you, and in actually how to budge, move forward, progress, see some improvement in performance with the group of people that you are responsible for that report to you. So you know how you see these segments, these infomercials, and people say, but wait, there's more. Well, that segment 2 weeks from now is going to be the but wait, there's more piece of this whole leadership. Remember, we're not talking about what people typically think about leadership. We're not talking about what is the truth on a superficial level, and we're not talking about the common misconceptions about leadership. You take that, you dial it up. It's the next level is where these leadership segments start from, okay? And then the very last segment is once I show you in segment number 4 what to actually do, but wait, there's more. In the last segment, we'll show you the return on the investment that scientific studies and research have shown you can expect. And then I want to encourage you to put what I'm telling you into practice so you can actually see the differences, the changes, the enhancements, the change in mindset that you and the members on your team will have based on the research. So that's the timeline and what you can expect. So today, the program segment is called Leadership, What It Should Never Be. We talked about what it is last week. Leadership, we said last week, based on the science that I gave you and the timeline that we measured, going back, I said, to the 1950s with a gentleman named George Homans. And I shared with you as I brought you from the 50s into the 70s and then slowly into the 90s, I started sharing with you that based on that body of research, leadership is first a relationship. And then leadership is a process. It is something that happens. It is a wheel that turns in a process. Leadership is a relationship, and it's also a process. Today I'm going to talk to you about what leadership should never be, and the subtitle is Toxic Tendencies. Now, so I'm going to share with you toward the end of this broadcast a very, very personal story. It is something that is a part of my professional resume that I am not proud at all that it happened, nor am I proud of the horrible effects that my actions for about 2 years had on a group of people, nor am I proud that my name is connected to it. Thank you for the heart. But it was the best thing that could happen. Now, let me change that around. Choose better wording. It was the best that could come out of something so ugly was able to take place, which is why I'm sitting in front of you today, which is very typical of who I am and why this whole thing called Encouragement is Key was even founded. It is the good that can come from ugly. It is the purposing of pain is the result of why I'm here in front of you today versus what took place. So I'm going to share that toward the end, so please stay tuned Toxic tendencies. What is toxic tendencies? What is toxic leadership? Now, leadership, the body of information on leadership generally falls in two categories. It's leadership styles and approaches, right? It's one category. And then there's the whole category of leadership theories. And both columns are filled with research and information. And it's funny, I used a line in my book as I did in my actual thesis paper because I found it from an author, and it goes something like, there are probably about as many opinions or books on leadership as there are opinions. Everybody has an opinion about what leadership is, right? Everybody. And some are good, some are not. Some are valid, some are not valid. What I want to do is to take an approach that's not based on any one person's experience so much as it's based on the science behind the experience. I don't want to come to you as a 46-year-old man who's been a call center professional for the last 20 years and say, this is what I've learned, because who am I, right? Not that my experiences aren't valid, nor am I saying are yours or anybody else's, but I wanted to do something next level. I wanted to tell you that science says that if you take this variable and connect it with this set of circumstances, you are likely to produce Y. So that's the benefit. So to get there, we got to understand what toxic leadership is. It's not a style. It's not a theory. It's actually a symptom. And it is symptomatic of a huge problem, and that is that there is a leader who's either currently in place or who was in place, that the classic definition of toxic leadership, that left the organization and the team much worse off. Thank you so much for joining. Cover Carolina. That left the organization in worse shape than they found it. And that is according to a researcher, a writer whose name is Jean Lipman-Blumen. It's either Jean or Jean Lipman-Blumen, in a book that she wrote in 2004. That book was called, I'm reading right from my book here, that book was called The Allure of Toxic Leaders, Why We Follow Destructive Bosses and Corrupt Politicians, and How We Can Survive Them. That's the book that I'm going to be using to share what I'm going to share with you today about toxic leadership. Either Jean or Jean Lipman, Lipman - Blumen, B like boy, L-U, M like Nancy, A-N, excuse me, M like Mary, A-N like Nancy, 2004. That's the name of her book. And when you think about toxic leadership, what it is a number of symptoms. It reads, I'm sure, like most doctors would write a medical chart or a diagnosis plan after having diagnosed the problem, the sickness. Here's why this is practical, because Jean Lipman-Blumen actually talks to us in her material about the fact that toxic leaders have some very universal tendencies that typically most of us can't see because we don't want to see. And one of the things that Lipman-Blumen mentions is that toxic leaders tend to be very charismatic. They tend to be very, they have personalities and tendencies to draw and to captivate people, almost as if they are casting some kind of spell on them. And if you're one of those people that are like me, you think, well, I can't be duped. Nobody can fool or deceive me. Why is it that an entire company can fall prey to some smooth-talking, bojangling, witch doctor, magic potion-producing person? Yet, history tells us, time after time, circumstance after circumstance, company after company have been all duped, hoodwinked and shackled and thrown in the dark during particular leaders' tenures. But sometimes you'll never catch that, and here's why. Because toxic leaders tend to be very good at what they do. And I'm not talking about the hocus pocus stuff. I'm talking about they do have on their resumes, and to their credit, legitimate experience, legitimate instances where they wowed W-O-W-E-D, wowed a company with regard to their respective performances. So it's very easy for us to get duped as being an employee of a company, because we see, well, that person, yes, they are a monster. Yes, they are beast in meetings. Yes, they are horrible. Yes, they may not have people skills. Yes, their bedside manner sucks. Yes, they do this. And yes, I see that I don't like. And yes, this is horrible. But here's what we do. We don't care so long as the bonuses are coming. We don't care so long as we all get annual performance evaluations that ultimately grant us bumps by percentage points in salaries. We don't care so long as the stock price is up. We could care less so long as the appearances are meeting our standards for living. And all the while, this person is destroying, because here are some characteristics. You're probably like, well, James, I'm still not understanding what the toxic part is. I'm glad you asked. The toxic piece is this. You get wowed by the charisma, and then what begins to happen is manipulation. Check this out. Tell me if you know any leaders like this. And heaven help us all if we've ever worked directly for leaders like this. You get the charm, the promises, you are awestruck by their previous performances, and then once the seat gets warm with them coming in, all of a sudden then these things follow. Manipulation, mistreatment, some kind of undermining takes place on some kind of a level. And then ultimately the followers are left, as I said a few seconds ago, in a worse condition, or either they find themselves in a worse condition than when and before the leader assumed that position or joined that company. Okay? So it's very easy for us to fall prey to toxic leaders. I mean, the Lipman Blumen cites a few people. She says, and I'm going to read right out of her book, as a quote out of my book, referencing her book. And she says, former Enron executive Kenneth Lay. You all remember that name? Not too long ago. The junk bond king, Michael R. Milken. You remember that name? Listen, and even Adolf Hitler were just a few of the notables cited as being revered by many. Listen to this. Though clearly tyrannical in their public and private lives. Did you hear that? Though clearly, back up even further, revered by many. Though clearly tyrannical. It didn't just say bad. They were tyrants. They were tyrannical in their public and private lives. So here we are, and I could use some very famous people and mention some names of some recent developments, but I won't. And you exactly who I'm talking about, who when their private lives came to bear, we were like, whoa, are you serious? Whether true or not, you're like, oh my goodness. Now imagine working with these individuals. What's the point? According to Lipman Blumen, she's saying that there are very obvious signs, not only publicly, but privately in these individuals' lives. And here's what we say. Whenever you hear about that rocker who dies of an overdose, or how many actors have transitioned out of life and into the afterlife because they OD'd, or how many how many movie stars that's how fast I'm talking. You pick your favorite people that you have known, that you have followed, revered, looked up to, bought their music, tuned into them on the big screen or the small screen, that have died. And here's what we all said at some point in time. I don't care about their private lives, so long as they're good on the screen. I don't care about their private lives, so long as and we are incredibly forgiving, if you think about it, as we should be. Because the issue is, nobody dubbed them a role model, so whatever they're doing privately, we want to say it really doesn't matter. Plus or minus, whether you agree or disagree, the point is that these are all, according to Lipman Blumen, and what I've written in my notes, that's the paper I'm showing you here, these are all the symptoms of toxic leaders. So when you think about that, it's not a good picture. When you think about that, one of the lines that I put in my book that was in the thesis that I wrote, the paper, is that by definition of what it means to be toxic, we couldn't even include that in my paper as a consideration because it was so diametrically opposed to what the point was of my paper that I only gave it really about a paragraph and a half. Because I was on this mission when I wrote my thesis to look for what I felt would give me the opportunity to try to improve performance at its highest level. Toxic leaders don't do that. Or if they do things that bring teams together, it's for self glory. It's for bringing attention to themselves as opposed to truly caring about the individuals that they're leading, and then most importantly about the future and well-being of the company. Toxic leaders, remember, they cast a spell. It's almost like we're under this hypnotic trance because we refuse to believe that these people are this monstrous or, according to Lipman Blumen, this tyrannical. What I want to do is to kind of share a couple of points with you as to why this is important. And if you are a leader and you are, let's say, interviewing or going through a process of getting ready to assume a new leadership role, whether it's within the company for which you've worked or whether it's with a whole nother company, or whether you are a person being promoted from frontline worker world things into a leadership role, to both categories of people, I want to encourage you to do this in the interview question and answer process. Make this note for yourself, please, because it's going to save you a heck of a lot of headache. Be sure to ask the people, the panel, the person that's conducting the interview, this one important question. And I don't care how you say it, obviously you want to be professional, but you need to put some emphasis on your phraseology to let the people know that you are not playing games and that you don't want to be swept up into such a horrendous cleanup effort. You say this very boldly. Thank you for the opportunity, but I am dying to know this question, sir or ma'am. What happened to the previous leader? Ask that question just like that. Excuse me, I'm just curious. I'm dying to know. As I was thinking about this, I was really excited about this offer, this position. I'm so glad that you thought so well of me to promote me from and promote me into this. But I've got to ask you the question, what happened to Joe? And you say, I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to want to know anything about them personally, but I'm just curious. Or you can say something like, why is the position vacant? You want to ask that question, and here's why. When you ask the question, pretend you turn their volume down. Don't listen to the words so much as you watch the expression on their faces. That's key. If it's a panel interview, watch them do this. They'll look back and forth. They'll kind of like as if they're looking for each other's affirmation and permission to speak. Now, if there's something weird happening, what is typically evident of something strange the leader did on their way out or to cause their exit, or if the team feels like they've left the group in a bad situation upon exiting, your panel will go like this, right? Don't listen to the words, watch or if it's a single interviewer, he or she will do this. Well, I'm going to tell you what happened, right? You'll see a pause of some sort. Make yourself a note. That is typically symptomatic, or typically evidence of a toxic leader's spewing of all kinds of horrible liquids in the environment. Be careful with those kinds of situations. If you're stepping into a role after someone has totally jacked up the shop, you may want to do a few things. Really ask yourself the question, do I want this role? And then if there's a second interview, or maybe during that interview, you may want to be bold enough to ask some additional questions so that you know what it is you're walking into. If you're walking into something and the reality is far worse than the picture painted in the interview, you may, listen, and I'm being dead serious, you may want to ask for a renegotiation of your contract after you've taken a good 14 to 30 days to assess the situation. And you can say with boldness, after assessing what I see here versus the picture that I had in my head, or versus the picture you painted to me during the interview, I would like to ask you for this. More money, some kind of change in benefits package or something. Because you could be harming yourself, or you could be shortchanging yourself. I've often said in my lifetime, in my experience, that some of the best sales pitches have been made in interviews from the representatives of the company to potential people, employees like me. People will talk up some of the good points. They'll talk down some of the bad points because they want talent, and most of the time they need a pulse. They need a pulse. They need a warm body to fill the position. Practical stuff that I want to share with you. And so go back to the interview. So if you see the panel kind of, looking at each other, then you want to start asking some questions. Hey, I always like to ask this when I do interviews, so I'd like to ask you if you don't mind, or however you want to transition into that. But you want to say, tell me, what were some of the good things that you hope to preserve about whoever the person was who is exiting or has exited? And then you say, and okay, along with it, thank you for paying me. Along with it, what are some of the things you want to correct about the previous leader's experience and tendencies, etc., or effects, I guess. And you really need to be bold enough to ask these questions, because the toxicity level could be off the charts. I work in call center environments, and I've done that for 20 years. I'm a call center professional. And I can say after the 15 to 20 years that I've spent, a lot of which was as a frontline leader working for different companies in banking, in sales, in health insurance, in property and casualty insurance. Thank you for all the hearts. You must be a call center professional as well. I love the call center because it's a million things that have to be managed, that have to be monitored, and I've enjoyed my stays with companies, whether I was a frontline rep or whether I was in a leadership role. So I've gone up through the ranks. I've been a frontline rep. I've been a team leader. I've been a manager. I'm now serving as a director. I've been a training consultant in companies to support the call center teams. So I've got a number of years and levels of perspective experience, and it's rare in call centers, as one of the unique environments, or one of the environments that I can definitely speak with confidence about. It's rare that when there is a vacancy, there is not some level of toxicity that's going to be there that you're going to walk into as a new leader. It's rare. It's rare. It's rare. So if you are a call center professional and you're just starting out and you're wanting to climb the ladder, or if you've been in call centers for a while and now all of a sudden you feel like, okay, let me explore some of the options and go up, try to move up, try to be mobile in the company. Know this, most of the time in a lot of call centers, I'm not speaking ill of call centers, I'm just telling you out of experience, most of the time in call centers, when there is a vacancy, it's for a doggone good reason. And upon that previous leader's exiting, the level of toxicity probably reached record highs. Here are some of the evidences of toxicity. Here are some of the evidences. When you step into the environment on day one, week one, month one, whatever, and you keep hearing the phrase, oh yeah, so-and-so did this and we were not happy about it, and we all knew this. When you hear phrases like that, that should put you on point and should open your eyes to the fact that you're walking into a potentially challenging situation. I see the hearts. You understand exactly what I'm talking about. When you see things like obvious performance deficiencies, obvious problems with certain employees with their attitudes, a disjointedness between team and leader, any of these things. And these things are symptomatic of many, many production-oriented environments. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the hearts. Of many, many production-oriented environments. I'm just happening, I as a call center professional, I'm just using call centers. Thank you so much, and thanks for sharing the broadcast. I'm just using call centers as a basis from my experience. And again, I don't want to speak ill of any of the companies for which I've worked or of their current leadership or past and previous leadership. It's just, these are just some notes that I've taken, again, based on the research. Lipman Blumen says that these are the things that you should look for. James W. Falcon has said, yep, Lipman Blumen, you are absolutely right. Now, I want to also say this, especially to those of you that have made your living or hope to in production-oriented environments. Can I tell you, following a toxic leader, if you have the patience, the gut, and the stomach for it, will produce some of the best opportunities for you to thrive as a call center professional or production-oriented professional than you've ever had. And here's why. On a very basic level, you get to be the superhero that cleans up the mess that the previous leader left. I want to challenge you, every person that calls him or herself a professional should at least try to follow one toxic leader for experience. It is unbelievable in terms of the richness of the experience. You have to be very careful that you don't throw that leader under the bus. Their performance and their integrity or lack of it should never be something that your current team sees you speak negatively about. You want to make sure that you say things like, what used to be the case is, and while there was a place for it then, I want to invite us to take another approach. You want to say things like that. Don't join the bandwagon of naysayers. Or you could find yourself in a situation like this particular example, following a toxic leader. You may have a situation where you've walked into a toxic situation, but everybody there is speaking highly of the previous leader, though you clearly see there are some evidences that the toxicity was high. I've been in situations like that. I've come in and said to myself, what in the world did I get myself into? I definitely need more money for this. But it was my assessment from the experience that I had. I looked around and I made those notes. And sometimes, in a few situations, I couldn't get leaders or team members to corroborate my note-taking and my observations. To them, the person was awesome. To me, I'm wondering, what in the world, how in the world were they able to be in that role for as long as they were? So pay attention to those things. See the hearts. You understand what I'm talking about. Pay attention to those things. So it's not that you're going to always walk into something as if you are following a hurricane having hit. You may follow a Santa Claus kind of a person. What was the lady's name? Oh my goodness, I'm losing not my train of thought, but I'm trying to remember her name. What was the sister's name that worked overseas? I can't think of her name. Oh my goodness, somebody help me. Anybody remember? She was a nun that went out on the mission field. She never came back. She was out there like 60, 70 years. Mother Teresa. You may be following a Mother Teresa type, or at least so she was revered in that particular company. But you may discover along the way that the effect may have been toxic. And she could have, even after she's gone. Now, please forgive me. I'm not speaking ill of Mother Teresa. I'm drawing from how we all view Mother Teresa's work to this day after her death. Mother Teresa was a saint in my book and in my opinion, and I'm sure in most of your minds and hearts as well. So I'm not throwing any kind of shade on Mother Teresa at all. So please understand my analogy. I'm saying the company may have revered that particular leader in a Mother Teresa kind of an aura. But then you realize as you look through files, as you see documentation, that maybe a lot of stuff was covered up, that maybe a lot of things weren't addressed. When you go into an environment and there are clear attendance-related issues, there are clear performance-related issues, there is a horrible culture that allows rudeness to run rampant to internal and external customers. And I don't care how well spoken or well perceived the previous leader was, those things are symptomatic of a toxic leader's presence. Toxic leadership. Toxic leadership, the segment is called It's Leadership, the kind of leadership that should never be. Now, we are all human beings, and we have tendencies to make mistakes. I love leadership roles because it challenges me professionally and personally. When I come to grips with the fact that I have care and I have the charge of other people's lives in respect to work performance, in respect to disciplinary action, in respect to performance reviews, in respect to having a little bit of say-so on the kind of money a person will get, that humbles me. In the beginning, I was incredibly pride-filled to have that kind of authority and power. Today, I handle it with such care that I almost don't want to handle it because I realize that on the other side of the table, the conference room, the disciplinary action, the discussion, the meetings, is a live person who in many cases is not much different from me, who in many cases don't have responsibilities that are much different from mine. They too may be husbands, parents, fathers, grandfathers, etc., etc. So I'm very humbled by any leadership roles that I currently have and any that I've had, quite frankly, in the past, I would say 4 years particularly. And so let me share this with you as I close for this particular segment. And again, I thank everybody for joining. But one of the things that's caused me, because on every Periscope broadcast I do, I typically will have somebody that will ask me this: why are you doing what you're doing? Thank you for the hearts. I typically have at least one person that says, James, why are you doing this? Why are you doing what you're doing? Well, my story is simple. In 2010, I had a nervous breakdown, hit the wall, whatever you want to call it. It was a hard, rough time for me. It was pitch black. As a matter of fact, I wrote a book about it called Pitch Black. And I just was lost inside of a cave, figuratively speaking. And I thought the best way for me to gain some kind of therapeutic benefit was to not turn inward, but was to find other people who were in the situations that I was in, who were literally living in my shoes, figuratively speaking, and to try to reach out to them to say, hey, sir, hey, ma'am, don't give up. I have decided to go another day. I want you to decide to go another day as well. From that brokenness in 2010, and from that desire to want to reach out to people, I started Facebooking a bunch of inspirational, motivational postings. I created a Facebook page. Amen. You understand what I'm talking about. I created a Facebook page that exists today that I still post on it. It is the inspirational, motivational arm or aspect of my encouragement-based network, and it's called Cafe Encouragement. Check it out. Cafe Encouragement is what it's called. It ballooned into a radio station, a blog talk radio series. I did it for about 1.5 years. All of the chalk talks and the inspirational things that I would share had links that people could download. And to date, more than 12,000 segments of that broadcast were downloaded and are in circulation to this day. So I started from that point building an encouragement-based network to really speak practically to people who've been challenged in some kind of way. And the threefold approach that my encouragement-based network has been taking is encouragement for individuals, encouragement for couples, specifically men and women, the heterosexual couple thing. And I want to let everybody know I am not partial or prejudiced or biased against folks that have sexual orientations and people that identify sexually in some kind of way apart from the way I do. Because I can guarantee if you have blood running through your veins, regardless of your race, color, creed, background, country of origin, sexual identity and orientation, we all bleed when cut. We all hurt. We all cry tears when life takes a jab or punch or stab at us. So I just focused on that particular segment, male, female, because that's my identity. So encouragement for individuals, for couples, and then encouragement for leaders and teams. That's my threefold mission statement. So I'm doing this broadcast segment because I want to provide some encouragement to leaders. If you are a person transitioning into a role, James W. Falcon would like to encourage you for the things that you should watch out for so you don't land in that brand new role. You know how it is. You get that office. Maybe you're a person that you get your first office, right? Thank you for the hearts. You were on the front lines in a cubicle. Now you were promoted, and now you land your first office. I remember when I got mine. And I was swiveling in the chair as the door was closed. And I was, whee! It was fun. I had a window. I remember it vividly. I had a window. I had a little pane of glass I can look out of, and I remember that transition. And nothing should detract from you experiencing the most out of that role. But so many people are given those perks. They enjoy the swivel chair and the privacy of an office, and then, bam, like a Mack truck, it hits them hard, and they look up one day and said, yep, I know exactly why this position was vacant for so long. Because everybody else knew what I didn't realize until recently was there is one heck of a mountain to climb. Not to leave you with a negative impression, once again, I want to emphasize, I want to reiterate, following a toxic leader can provide, not always, some of the best experience, some of the most teeth-gritting, grinding experiences. You will laugh harder than you've ever laughed. You will cry. You will hurt because of having to walk into a toxic situation. Lipman Blumen says that toxic tendencies, toxic leaders leave companies and teams far worse than when they found them. So here's a personal example as I wrap up. I don't even know how many years ago it was, but at least a good 10 to 15. I was brought on as the director of a nonprofit organization that was a distributorship. And basically I was brought on because I have some sales and some production-oriented experience. I have some shipping and receiving experience. I have tons of warehousing experience. And all of these were aspects that they needed to have someone in the role that knew something about those things and how to really get things done. So I kind of went through the process and I was hired. While I was in the role, I realized that one of the major contributors to this organization via the products and services that distributor or contributor provided dried up and moved away. The organization was basically left barren and destitute. My responsibility was to try to find other sources of those products and services and find, new sources, or either try to reach out to the previous sources to revive them to get the operation running. I want to just tell you like this. The organization was used to getting 7 million pounds of products and services for that particular organization per year. They were used to getting 7 million pounds. Because the changes took place, what happened was they had gone from 7 million to just under I think it was 450,000 pounds of product. So huge difference. Literally, it crippled the organization. So my responsibility was to revive that whole process. Nonetheless, long and short of it was this. I moved the organization from, I think it was 250,000 pounds is what it was. 250,000 pounds to 1.2 million pounds in a solid year's time is what I was able to do. Here's why that experience may be helpful for you. During the course of that time as the leader, I was a monster. Listen to me. I was a complete tyrant. I was the worst person on the planet. I foamed at the mouth during meetings with anger. I cursed at people. I threw people out of meetings. I said to people on a regular basis, as if it were my middle name, it's either my way or the highway. I was absolutely beyond my mind's sake. I was a monster. Yet and still, the forgiveness that was afforded to me, the fact that nobody ever said to me, subordinates, and I hate to use that word, people that reported to me or superiors, nobody ever said, James, what in the heck are you doing? They never said that. Why? Because we were moving so fast, no problem at all. We were moving so fast, so far, and we were acquiring, listen, 7 million pounds the year before I got there. 250,000 pounds the year before I got there for an organization that was used to moving 7 million pounds of products and services and different things in previous years. We went from 250,000 to 1.2 million. We were actually getting each week about 150,000 pounds worth of product weekly, as opposed to the previous year, having only done 250,000 pounds for the entire year. Do you understand the scale? And so as a result of that, you can see why there was this reverence there. And it's not that I took advantage of people, but I didn't care. I was tyrannical. I'm going to use the word that the researcher used in the finding. I was tyrannical. And I remember after my tenure, I had accepted a job in a position with another company. And I remember the group that reported to me, they called me to a meeting. And I remember being afraid at this particular point. Like literally, I was afraid I was going to walk into an ambush, some kind of an argument, because I knew in my heart of hearts, I treated this group of phenomenal people, by the way. They did nothing at all to warrant me to treat them this way. I didn't know what to expect. I did not go to that meeting. And it wasn't until weeks later I heard a buzz, because the organization was a part of a larger organization, and I remained a part of that larger organization, but didn't even go back to see how the operation was that I left. I just didn't care. And I remember not going to the meeting, and then it got back to me. And so the guy that used to report to me, he called me. He said, James, how you doing? And I'm kind of nervous now, because it's funny. When you do wrong, you know you do wrong. Or at least I like to think I do in certain instances. And I remember getting a call from him, and he said, hey, man, why didn't you come to the meeting? And I wanted to say, because I didn't know if you all had guns, knives, sticks, or what. But I said, no, I got a meeting conflict. You know how it is, a brand new job. And this is what he said to me, and it brought me to tears. I'll never forget it. He said to me, James, we had all brought the entire team, all levels, the folks that were the supporters of the organizations that we used to support. They had a whole warehouse full of hundreds of people, and they gathered together to honor me. And I want to try not to cry on this broadcast, people. They wanted to say thank you for a job well done. My eyes are watering. And for my leadership to put us back on the map. I was so toxic during my tenure and so disrespectful of human life that I couldn't even see or accept an invitation when people wanted to honor me. And I swore after that phone conversation that I would never, ever, ever be that person again. Which is why I then started picking up books to find out, well, what should leadership be? What are the components? Hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining. What are the elements? Like, I grew up in a great household. My mom and dad were phenomenal human beings. They are my superheroes to this day. They both passed on. My brother, you'll hear me talk in all of my writings and things that I do about my brother. He's 21 years older than I am. I'm 6'3.5". He's 6'8". So I'm the baby, the youngest. By definition of size, I look up to him, but I respect my brother because he is an amazing man, just like our mother and father. And so I grew up in a situation around some incredible people. So I had a semblance of knowing a few things, but what I did not have was I didn't have the experience of working for many incredible leaders until one day I found myself in the employ of a man that I will just call Mr. D. Bell, who is a dear friend of mine to this day, and he modeled what servant leadership and effective leadership should be, and he blew my mind to the degree that I felt like I want to become the person that this gentleman was to me for others, and I want to know the science behind me assuring myself that if I do A and if I combine B, that I'll get Y as the intended output. And that, my friends, is why James W. Falcon has incorporated leadership and encouragement for leaders and teams into this network that I'm building. If you have been, thank you for the hearts. If you have been there, if you have become that person, if you have hopefully been that person and you're not happy and you're not proud of having been that person, if you feel like I do, that it is shameful for me to have that on my record, then I want to encourage you, and you particularly, and you especially, to say, use that disappointment to springboard forward to become the best leader you can be. Have I made, thank you for all the hearts, have I made tons of mistakes since then? Absolutely. But here's what I have never been, and that is tyrannical in the aspects that I mentioned as it related to the person that I was in that previous role. I make tons of mistakes all the time, and I don't say that flippantly, and I don't say that to excuse my actions. I say that as a result of having made sure that I put myself in a situation to value the life for which I am responsible. And I want to encourage you, my friend, to understand the principles that I'm trying to share on this broadcast, because in respect, they're my experiences, or at least they're prompted by my experiences, but that's why I'm bringing you the science behind this stuff, so that you'll know that it's bigger than James W. Falcon. For whoever you are sending me those hearts, I greatly appreciate you, and that encourages me. So I hope that helps, and I'm saying to you on this second segment, part 2, this is leadership. This is this is leadership. It's toxic leadership in particular, and it is what should never be. Thank you for joining me. Next level. Remember, it's not just what's common. It's not just the skating that most of us do on the top of the ice, of the iced pond. It's not the superficial knowledge that we have. This is next level. This is called next level leadership. Next week, we're going to bring to you leadership, the obligations, because there are legal, ethical, and moral obligations to leadership that I want to talk to you about. That's next week on the 20th of February. Why don't I put my glasses on? And then there's on the 27th, there is the investment portion. Remember I said, but wait, there's more. I'm going to talk to you about the specific things you can do. Taking X, combining it with Y to produce an intended and expected outcome. And let me just tell you what some of those things are. When I share with you the research for the 4th segment on February 27th, if you're just joining, that's the broadcast. I don't want you to miss any of these, but the February 27th broadcast, I especially don't want you to miss, because what I'm going to show you is the different categories that the leadership that I've done will show you how to improve in, and that will guarantee that you will certainly get some improvement. Sir, you're a very good speaker. You explain yourself very well. Hey, thank you so very much, my friend. Thank you for joining. Thank you for that compliment. That really touches me, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm going to share with you if you're a leader or an aspiring leader and you have a group of people that you're leading, I'm going to show you how you can, not a problem. Thank you. I'm going to show you how you can increase citizenship. That's a person's understanding of their value on a team. I'm going to show you if you're working in a shop that is suffering from large percentages of employee turnover. I'm going to share with you something that is in the research that will reduce employee turnover from high double digits to single digits. If your folks are typically performing much, much lower than your departmental performance standards, hey everybody, I don't know what happened. It was probably well past time for me. It's probably well past time for me to have rebooted that broadcast. I'm going to give everybody 3 seconds to kind of join in. I got 2 more minutes of information I want to share, okay? I definitely want to give everybody this opportunity. 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, everybody. I was going through my listing of what the segments are going to be going forward, so I want to finish that. You'll be able to find the first segment and this last little clip. Both are going to be on my Facebook page, Encouragement is Key, and it'll also be included on my YouTube page when I bring these pieces together, okay? Thank you for joining me. I'm hoping you were with me on the previous broadcast. If not, thank you for joining me initially. So what I was talking about was, as we finished up the last broadcast, this is called Next Level Leadership. I am James W. Falcon, the founder of a leadership-based network of encouragement-based projects. It's called Encouragement is Key, and I just finished a teaching on leadership, and I just wanted to let everybody know for the segment on next Saturday, it's called Obligations, Leadership Obligations. Thanks for joining. On the 27th, which is the Saturday after that at 2 p.m., it's Leadership, the Investments, and then on the very last Saturday, the 5th Saturday, which is the 5th of March. It's the 5th Saturday of these segments. We run every Saturday. I'm going to talk to you about the return on the investments that I am going to be able to share with you that you will know how to make. Thank you so very much, everyone, for your attentiveness, for your patience, and for taking time out of your busy Saturdays and Sundays or whatever the days are to join me. This is next level leadership. It's not the surface. It's not what's commonly thought of leadership to be. But it is, hey, thank you so much. Hey, thank you so much. This is the next level of leadership. So until the next time we meet, I'm James W. Falcon, the host for these segments. This is segment number 2. We're going to be doing 3, 4, and 5 over the next 3 Saturdays, finishing up on Saturday, March the 5th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm always coming to you live from Baltimore, Maryland, here on the East Coast of these United States. Go to my Facebook page, Encouragement is Key. You'll find out more about me and some of the other stuff I've got going. There's a listing of things out there right now in terms of what's going to be happening for the next couple of days. I'm doing some live things in the Baltimore area on this coming Thursday. I got a piece for male-female relationships that'll blow your mind coming this coming Wednesday, because I specialize in providing encouragement to individuals, to men and women in their relationships, and to leaders and teams in the workplace. So that's what I do and who I am. So go to my Facebook page, Encouragement is Key. Follow me on Twitter at James W. Falcon, like the bird, Falcon. Follow me on IG at James W. Falcon. Thanks so much for joining. Go to my blog page if you want to know more about me educationally, professionally. You can find me there at Encouragement is Key. So the bottom line is I've given you every place in social media that, hey, how are you? From Russia. Hey, how are you? So if you want to find out more about this broadcast, then you would go to my YouTube page. Give me until tomorrow. I'll get this teaching posted there. You can find all the things I'm doing. If you are a person that loves poetry, I do some poetry. I do some writing. And you need to check me out. It says, you know the group Bring Me the Horizon. No, I don't, actually. Sounds encouraging, though. Thanks so much for joining. So check me out, James W. Falcon. YouTube, how are you? What's up to you? And James W. Falcon on IG. James W. Falcon on Instagram. Encouragement is Key, both the Facebook page and the blog site. I'm going to leave you with this statement. Whatever I do and my approach to provide encouragement, what I do is I always leave people with this thought. Whatever it is you're doing, however it is you're doing it, be sure to be, and stay encouraged. Until the very next time, you all enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a phenomenal weekend, and we'll be back at you tomorrow morning. Take care.